having a good day? This is my this is a Portulacaria Afra, kind of an accidental turned into a grouping planting. Just a quick history on this pot and like how I came about this or whatever. This is just a little tin pot. Came with a little kit that had some herbs to grow in it or whatever. Another gift from my daughter. But I got a ton of the herbs to germinate and grow. I think that it was the mint that lasted the longest through the summer, but then at some point in the summer, the mint just kind of fried up too. It was still only, the kit and everything was only like 6 months old. And this is nothing but, I hate to admit it, but nothing but pure peat. It's that stuff that they give you that expands in those little kits that comes in the boxes or whatever. But I just kind of had it sitting there, and I did a bunch of trimming of my ports or whatever. I had enough, cuttings around to kind of keep me occupied, but I just had a bunch and I threw it in here. I'm going to try to throw in some old pictures. They're not very well organized. I'm not really even sure which side is which, because it was probably at one point like maybe 9 cuttings. I started kind of harvesting the cuttings, and then at one point I did decide there was 5 left in a grouping like this. You're supposed to have an odd number or whatever. So I left it at the 5 for a little while, and then I think one of the 5 was right here where this rock is. I didn't replace with any soil because I didn't want to put good soil on top, being that there's just peat in there and everything. And then I think maybe another one might have been here where this rock is, as that one was kind of holding that up. It's kind of held up on its own now though too. One of these, this one I think got so big it fell over and pretty much almost just came out of the pot on its own. So I took that and repotted it. And then I wound up doing the same thing with that one. And I think it's been about a year. I'll try to put the dates on some of these pictures I'm showing you if I'm not done with the pictures by now. But, I had it was probably about this size, and I had just started to kind of clip it. I was going to just make it a nice little tree kind of a looking thing, nothing all that, twisty and turny or anything like that. But then, as I kind of went by, I started noticing that there were some crossing branches. A couple of them have some really big branches that are starting low, kind of shooting up. This one especially. And so I was like, well, I've got to go ahead and give that a heavy prune when I have some time. So I stopped pruning it, and today's the day I have a little bit of time. Plus, I'm not really sure what the weather phenomenon is coming through tonight, but we're supposed to have winds tomorrow like 20 miles an hour all day. No rain or anything like that, just winds. And I've been noticing that it's been getting kind of topsy-turvy there and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and give it its heavy prune now. And hope it starts looking pretty decent. I mean, considering that it was just cuttings in that peat that I threw in there, I think it does. Eventually, I'll have to address the peat somehow. So as I look around, this one here, I'm going to take out the bigger stuff first and then come back and try to just clean it up a little bit better. But this one just started taking off, and it's coming straight out of the middle with 2 sides. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that whole thing off. That might be worth me trying to save. I might even try to go out there. I got a couple of pots with some sparse growth in it, and I lay it on the side, see if I can turn it into a raft or something. But either way, you let that callus over like a week. So any of these larger cuttings, I just kind of set them off to the side. And if a week from then I haven't come up with an idea with them, I just throw them away. And then this one has all this really strong growth coming off of, you have the thicker part of the trunk that goes off that way, and I'm going to go ahead and just cut that whole piece off just to get some of that bulk out of there, and then also allow some taper, because that was getting really thick, growing really quickly, and then this little skinny one wasn't getting much growth on it, so now we'll push the growth up that way. And then this last one down here, of course I'll pop that off. Alright, so since now the target's much smaller, I tried to see if I could get in there and give you guys a little bit of a better look. But now that most of that's gone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and try to get a good number of the growing tips. And then also just kind of, instead of just all the growing tips, try to get just some of the ones sticking straight up, straight down, things like that. And it's not a ficus. I don't really mean growing tips like that. They don't really have the growing tips quite the same way. But I guess I could have just said kind of hedge prune it. looks really out of place too. Alright, so it has been a long time since I've had this guy cleaned up. As I'm kind of looking at it now, I'm thinking that that would probably be the side I'd think about presenting as the front, if I'd even leave it as a group. They're not really close enough to where they're rooted together. And then, being in peat, I'm sure that they're don't have the best root systems in there. I mean, they probably aren't bad. It does grow pretty well in there. And I think that first side does look better than that side. But I also think all the time that, you know, if I ever do decide to separate them, they should be some decent looking unique trees. This one's got some movement, and without this one on its side, it would look just kind of curious, I think, to me, why it only has the branches on one side. But again, sometimes it's not everything looking the same. You want something that does kind of look different than everything else. And then this one has some really good ramification on that side. Hard to separate it from the rest, but it, you know, it does have a decent looking canopy there. And again, it would have that kind of funky looking side there. And then this one, I always thought this one had a nice little graceful turn to it too. This piece here, next time I do an update, if you guys stick around, I'll show you how I leave that much on there and don't really, you know, some people say never use concave cutters on a succulent like this or whatever. I use the concave cutters. I just cut way back. And the next time I do an update, I probably won't do an update until I've kind of hedge pruned this like 2 or 3 times. But that'll be all black and it'll just pick right off. And it should almost be non-existent by, say, like another 6 months from now or something like that. You'll definitely be able to see it probably the next time I update you. But I will wait until after I've just kind of done some little quick pruning. Now that it's a little bit more even, should kind of start getting the smaller leaves, a little bit of a tighter canopy than even it had before I had started letting it go.